Are you a chiropractor with a struggling practice, having a hard time finding and keeping patients? Is your staff falling short of expectations? I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and DC Trainings has the answers that you need. So tune in now and find out how. Hello, everybody. Welcome to DC Trainings. I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer. We have a big day today with regards to the CA examination, and this is our week 6 of module 2. So I'm very excited to be with you today. It's a big topic. I know there's CAs on the call, so it's an exciting and a big topic because with regards to CAs, there's, the CAs run the front desk, they answer the phones, they schedule appointments, they collect payments, they do all of these things. But what we're going to talk about today is taking it to the next level where CAs actually participate in patient care at a level that is right up there with the doctor. And what that creates in the mind of a CA is a very endearing participation or an endearing relationship with each patient, because it's beyond just the front desk, which is sort of more open, it's more public. This is more intimate, and this is more taking a real connection with patients on an examination level. Now, I know we did that in the consultation, and we did that in taking the history, but this is about really connecting through hands-on, doing an exam, going through certain tests. And so this is exciting, and this is really important for your team to be participating in this. Not to mention that part, there's another part, and that is that doctors, if someone helps you with the examination in a way that frees your time up, then that means there's two things that come from that. One is it frees you up to be able to serve more patients, right? If you're doing a certain part of the exam, but you're not doing another part of the exam, someone else is doing that, then that frees you up to be able to serve more patients. That was number one. Number two is it sets your practice up more like a business, and businesses need to run in perpetuity. They need to have that viability where even if somebody drops off the team, the business is still running. And imagine where we would all be today if BJ Palmer didn't have the business sense that he did. Well, obviously, none of us would be here as chiropractors, right? Didi had a vision for chiropractic, which was everybody needs to be adjusted, but everybody should be doing the adjusting. Everyone. He didn't have any interest in taking it to the level of being a doctor or a primary care provider. In fact, he wanted chiropractors and even their spouses to be doing adjustments so that they could take care of kids at home, which was a very, noble pursuit. I mean, that's obviously he wanted chiropractic care for the whole world, and that was a great position for him to push for. BJ Palmer took it more in the level of business. And when we look at the history books, a lot of times you'll hear Didi Palmer was the founder of chiropractic, whereas BJ Palmer was the developer of chiropractic. He looked at it from a business standpoint. And why am I sharing that story with you? Because we wouldn't be here today if BJ Palmer hadn't looked at chiropractic as a business, right? And generations from now, 100 years from now, or 124 years, I think we're at, we want chiropractic to still be at the forefront of healthcare. And if we want that, we need to be looking at our practices in a way, not just as sort of a career individually, but more as a mainstream healthcare approach or healthcare solution for patients worldwide that is on the magnitude to where everybody wants it because it's good for them and it helps them, but also as a business, as a profession that's global. And that's what I'm striving for with DC Trainings. I want to help each of us to have the most successful practice in place that we can have, so that we can then in turn serve our patients and they can spread the word and more people come into this chiropractic community and receive chiropractic care. So why am I going off on that tangent? Well, it ties back with what I was talking about. The more we can help our team participate in the process of helping a new patient sort of step up into this, I want chiropractic care for the rest of my life, the more we can help our entire team in that process, the bigger our practices will be, the more we help with the viability of our business, the more we perpetuate the chiropractic profession and the more we grow and serve as many people as possible. So that's why I kind of get excited about this topic today with regards to the CA examination. So let's jump in and let's talk about how this is going to work for you in your practice, and how you can use this to incorporate the help of your team. Just as a quick reminder, we're moving right along through Module 2. We're already in week 6. That means 2 more weeks, and then we'll be ready for our Module 3 report of findings. But we are moving right along. So as I always say during this process, if you have any questions, just email us, jump in on these webinars. Let us know if there's anything that we can help you with, so that you don't get left wondering, what am I supposed to do when this comes up or that comes up? So please let us know. It's dctrainings@gmail.com, or you can, of course, call us, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So let's, and actually one more sort of housekeeping item. We do have our next seminar coming up on May 20th. That's the report of findings module. That will be a virtual seminar, again, on Saturday, May 20th. That'll kick off the report of findings sequence. So please RSVP online so we can get your materials prepared for you and have that ready to go. Okay, so let's keep going though. Let's dive into this, because in the sequence that we've talked about, we just left off with the DC examination. And the DC examination, I want to repeat this because I talked about it last week, but the DC exam happens before, I guess I'm going this way, before the CA exam, because that way the CA exam comes across as a more customized examination based on that patient's particular needs. And anytime, especially this day and age, where people want to be recognized as individuals and we want to be catered to on an individual basis, because there's so many things that are digitized, we want to make sure that we cater to this approach excuse me, in helping the perception by the patient is, yes, these tests are customized. Now, I will tell you that, yes, I do throw in some customized tests with variations occasionally, but for the most part, for our new patients, my CA comes in and does a standardized routine set of tests. And those are the tests that I've determined help me with subluxation correction. And that's our goal in this process, is subluxation correction. So we want those tests to basically accentuate where the subluxations are. So any test that'll help us do that, that's what I want the information from. So the tests that I do as the doctor are the tests that require more interpretation. And that's the way the laws are around the chiropractic profession. Your CAs can do orthopedic tests, they can do neurologic tests, they can do range of motion, they can do these tests that are very involved and helpful. They can't interpret the findings. So any test that you have your team participating with, just make sure that they're not interpreting the findings in terms of how it results in the patient's condition. It's just basically a yes or no, or read the number, and there's no interpretation involved. Then it's fine. Then our CAs can participate in the exam. Okay, so on the screen, within 2 minutes of the doctor's departure, the CA re-enters with increased concern about the doctor's findings, the exam findings. So let me frame that for you, because what happened was, as the doctor, I left the room and said, I have concerns. I've definitely found that there's a subluxation. I want to have my assistant come in and do some more tests so we can determine how long that subluxation's been there and to what extent it's affecting your spine and nervous system. That's where I left off as the doctor. Now my CA comes in, again, with increased concern. Wow, the doctor sounded concerned about what he found. So let me continue with the tests that the doctor wants me to do based on what he found or she found on your exam, right? So these are customized tests in that way. And I'll add one more point too, which was on that screen. It said within 2 minutes. And the point of that being, you want to have your practice set up in a way so that patients aren't left to wait and wonder what's going on. So we want to make sure that that little gap of time after the doctor left and the CA comes in is short. Now, what that might involve, for those of you who have a practice where maybe you only have one CA, or I shouldn't even say only, maybe you have one CA, that's great. But if you have one CA, I'm still going to recommend, doctors, that you don't go and do these tests that your CA can help with. Again, it increases value for this career position by your CA when they're involved in a patient's care to this level. And from the standpoint of building value from the patient's perspective, it's much more valuable or value added when a CA comes in and does these doctor prescribed tests. And I don't mean prescribed like prescription drugs. I'm not into that, but these custom doctor prescribed tests are being done by a CA. That builds value. So we want to make sure that we're doing all these little things that build value, because what does this ultimately result in? You'll have patients stay longer. They'll refer more patients. They'll be much more willing to pay for their care. These are all the things that come when we build value. Okay, so let's continue on, and let's talk about how to continue this. So I've left the room. My CA comes in within 2 minutes and continues the examination. And there's a couple of key points that need to happen. I'll preface this by saying you can decide what tests you want your CA to do, right? I mean, based on your technique and your philosophy and how you want to approach a patient's condition. I leave that up to you. If there's tests that I don't cover that you want incorporated into your exam process, by all means, have at it. But here's some key points, regardless of what tests you decide that you want your team to perform. Here's some key points that are important to have as part of this exam process. So the first one is we want to confirm the existence of a subluxation, right? So now CAs, you actually have that confirmation because the doctor did the exam, and you can say, yes, you have a subluxation, and that can come through in your recording. So the next item is that exam findings are recorded for effect. Well, that's important because if we're recording them, then now we've gone from, it sounds like you have a subluxation, but the doctor will be in to decide for sure, to you have a subluxation because the doctor just told me you have a subluxation based on that exam. So now we're actually recording in a different way. We're saying, based on a cervical subluxation, cervical range of motion or cervical right lateral flexion is reduced by 50%. See, that's a confirmation of a subluxation, and it's linking this restriction in the range of motion to that condition. See, so there's a change that happens. It's a subtle one, but it's relevant because, again, it builds value, right? So that's just an example of how you can incorporate that into those recorded exam findings. Okay, so let's keep going. So once we've done that part, we're going to go through all the tests that you determine are appropriate for this patient given their scenario. So the CA exam, and I gave you some examples here, but it's about 5 minutes. It could be more, it could be less, depending on what you determine you want to occur during that exam. But there's seated tests, there's standing tests, and there's walking tests. Now, I'm going to show you these on the website in just a minute on our examination form. So I'll give you actual examples. But the point of seeing this on the screen is that these tests should have a certain flow, and it has a tempo which increases in pace. So as an example, let's say on a seated test, I'm a CA now. I'm going to do cervical range of motion. So, and on the cervical range of motion, during the process of that cervical range of motion, I determined that rotation to the right is restricted by 50%. Well, if that's restricted by 50%, we sure better check the rotation to the left. Well, that one's restricted by 25%. So that's not as much. Still significant, but not as much. But since that's restricted by 50%, well, I better do a shoulder depression test to determine the brachial plexus. See if that's compressed. That's got to be done. And since that came up abnormal, well, then I guess I better do a foraminal compression test to see if that's also positive, right? So these tests build on each other. And as they're coming up abnormal or positive, depending on how you want to phrase that, I'm recording the findings for effect, and I'm increasing in tempo. And I'm also going to make comments during that exam, which delineate to the patient what's normal and not normal. So comments would be something like this. Let's say cervical compression is normal. So I do the compression test. Is that painful? Nope, feels fine. Okay, good. That's a comment that supports what that finding was. Let's say I go to do the shoulder depression test, and that's painful. Well, that's going to be a different recording. So during that recording, I would say something like, cervical depression test is abnormal on the right, indicating a subluxation in the cervical spine, or indicating thoracic outlet syndrome, or whatever it is that you want based on your technique, your CA to say as a result of that test, right? If you have more, extensive orthopedic evaluation training and you want to incorporate that into your patient care, then you might say something like, there's an indication of possible thoracic outlet syndrome. Okay, teach your CAs how to say that. If you're more subluxation based or you want to remain subluxation focused, then you might say cervical depression is abnormal, indicating a subluxation in the cervical spine. Teach your CAs how to say that. And those become the statements that are recorded during the exam so that the process, the patient's understanding what you're finding, and it continues through in that process. That makes sense? Okay, so let's continue on. So let me go back to sharing my screen. There we go. Sorry, I thought I had the webinar was changing. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's keep going. So then the next part is the CA adds exam findings to the consultation details. I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. I'll show you that. And then additional testing is done based on the results of that exam, i.e., you might choose to take some x-rays. You might choose to do a thermal scan. You might have a subluxation station. Whatever it is that are additional tests that you need, incorporate those. Now, if you don't need additional tests, that's okay too. We still want to go in this process where we're doing the tests by the doctor first, and then we're doing the tests by the CA. Okay, so let's keep going though, because I want to show you some more. I'm going to show you the website in a minute. So on the website, you'll see that there's the CA examination outline and script, and there's a video that goes with that. So you can watch the video, and I use the video to train my CAs. You can also read the script, you can read the outline, and you can follow through with that to incorporate that into your practice. All right, after the exam, the CA escorts the patient to reception to schedule the report of findings using details from the summary of charges. Now, the summary of charges was a document that I provided for you on the last webinar. It's on the website, but it's from last week. And that has to do with how you notate your findings as the doctor and what tests you'll be needing moving forward. Okay, so I'll show you that actually in just a minute. All right, so then we're kind of wrapping up this part with the CA. Okay, so from the CA exam, there's key encounters that happen between the CA and the patient. The first one is, and this kind of gives you an overview, even though it was broken up into pieces. The first one was the memorable welcome, right? When the new patient walked into the office, they had a memorable welcome part 1, and they had a memorable welcome part 2. Part 1 was at the reception counter when they first walked in. Part 2 was when they were sitting in the lobby, and they were then escorted back to a consultation room. Then the next was the actual consultation, or the history, if you will, that was done by the CA in the consultation room. Then we had the CA exam. Okay, now in between those two was the doctor's exam, but we had the CA exam. And then the last one is that further testing, that additional testing. If you need that, great, then this is where that comes into play. If you have a CA who does takes x-rays, as I do, I have a certified x-ray technician CA, and she takes our x-rays. So if you have that, great. If not, doctors, then that would of course be for you to take if you do take x-rays. But that whole process is about 20 minutes. And part of why I'm emphasizing this is because I want to make sure that you have a reasonable amount of time that your new patients can expect to spend with you on their first visit. And we want to meet their expectations or even exceed them a little bit if we can. So when a new patient calls and they say, how long is this first appointment going to last? You can let them know. In my office, we ask them to allow an hour. Even if they don't ask, we still ask them to allow an hour. The reason why we say that is because we want them to have a time frame for that appointment. But the good news is almost always, and sometimes we don't if we're really, really busy, but most of the time, almost always, we come up short of that. So they're actually out of the office in less than an hour, maybe 45 minutes or so. So that's part of why I'm giving you these time frames so that you can sort of look at an overview of how long do we want our new patients to spend in the office, based on meeting their expectations, but also based on our scheduling, right? If I know that I've got an hour with a new patient, and at the same time, I can actually see 2 new patients simultaneously, excuse me, maybe one's in the consultation room having their history taken, another one's in the x-ray room getting their x-rays taken, or maybe the other one is in the lobby still, they're filling out their patient information form. So in my office, it's actually fairly common where we'll have 2 new patients in the office at the same time, but they're at different steps in the process. And by staggering them into these 4 parts that I showed you on the screen, by staggering them, we know that it's not going to delay their appointment. It's not going to make them spend extra time in the office. We'll still fall within the time frame that we promised, and it's not going to hold anything else up. So it's good to look at this from a macro view in that way so that you can stay on time. Okay. So now next week, we'll get into the new patient completion. Pretty quick subject or topic today, but I want to go back to the website now and show you how this works on the website. Oh, actually, sorry, can't do that. How do I move that over? Let's see. Oh, I know. Sorry, I just have to move my page over here a little bit so I can share my screen for you. There we go. So let's jump back over to the website, and in this way, I want to show you these materials because this week we have a couple of things. It's the as I said, it's module 2, new patient module, week 6, CA exam, and our materials in this week cover the CA examination outline and the CA examination script. So and I pulled these up ahead of time because I wanted to show you. Oh, actually, I'm not sure why I opened it twice. Why did I open it twice? There. Oh, okay. I'll cover the outline first. So here's the outline. And this is what we covered in the PowerPoint, but this is a continuation of the new patient exam. We want to express appropriate concern and empathy regarding the results of the DC's exam, right? Because we've now confirmed that there's a subluxation. We want to perform the CA exam by beginning with the area of primary concern first. Really important. So if somebody comes in with neck pain, I told you last week, as a doctor, I'm going to evaluate the area of neck pain first, even if in addition to the neck pain, they also told me about their lower back or their foot or whatever it is. I'm always going to start with the area of the primary concern. Now, I shared with you that I was going to give you examples of different tests that you could do in a seated, standing, and supine position so that you can flow through the exam in a sequential way, but also so that you can build sort of the tempo or the pace as those tests come back, creating a picture, okay? So the first one is the seated exam. We like to do seated first. The patient's comfortably sitting, and we start with that part of the exam. So here's some sample tests. We can do cervical range of motion, shoulder depression, cervical compression. Those are some examples of a seated exam. Supine exam, when they're laying on their back, here's some sample tests. You could do straight leg raise, Braggards, Patrick Faber's, right? These are tests that would accentuate a subluxation. These are actually areas where when you do these tests, if somebody has a subluxation, it's going to accentuate that subluxation. So it connects the dots for the patient and it gives you the results that you need. So that's a supine exam. They're laying on their back. A standing exam could include tests like lumbar range of motion, right? We started with cervical range of motion sitting down, and then we have lumbar range of motion standing up, or we might do Kemp's. That's another example of a standing exam. There's one last test I'll share with you too, and that is the heel to toe walk. And that's a test, you can watch it on the video, but it's a test that checks for upper cervical stability or instability regarding a subluxation. And for this one, I want to just open up the screen and share this with you because it's a really important test and it's a valuable test because in your brain and nervous system, for those of you, for the CAs on the call today, you'll appreciate this. We have our eyes, and our eyes look for something that's horizontal or vertical in our vision to orient our balance, our proprioception, or our equilibrium. If you've ever been in like a real dense snowstorm where it's snowing so hard, you can't tell you can't see the ground because it's covered in snow. You can't see the air because it's filled with snow. You can't see the sky because it's snowing. And you get this sense of equilibrium loss where you think, well, I can't tell which way is up. Well, that's an example of what I'm referring to, where your eyes have suddenly lost the ability to determine what's vertical, what's horizontal, and so it can throw off your balance. So your eyes are connected to your occipital lobe, and that's where your vision controls your balance. That's one of your balance centers. There's a second balance center, and that balance center is in your upper neck. It's in the vestibular part of your brainstem. So it's actually down at the level of about C2 or C1, but C2 more appropriately in your neck. That balance center controls your balance when your eyes are closed. So if my eyes are closed, I don't immediately fall over. Why don't I fall over? I don't fall over because when my eyes are closed, my nervous system innately immediately goes to my brain stem and uses the vestibular part of my nervous system to orchestrate what's up, what's down, and it's using gravity to determine that. Well, since we want to test the upper cervical spine for a subluxation, we can use what's called the heel to toe walk test by having a patient close their eyes and then walk heel to toe towards us. If they can do it with their eyes open, they're using their eyes and their occipital lobe. That's up in the brain. But if they do it with their eyes closed, they take out the brain, they're using the brain stem. And if there's a subluxation there, suddenly your body thinks this is horizontal. And it's going to be very difficult to walk heel to toe with your eyes closed. So that's just a great example of a test you can use as a walking exam or a heel to toe test to determine if somebody has an upper cervical subluxation. And to bring that in for a landing, if you have a patient who loses their balance during that test, it's a very moment, meaning what they came in with, maybe it was back pain, just took a back seat to, whoa, there's something wrong with my nervous system. I couldn't balance when I walked that test. And it'll be amazing. You'll see this. If you start using this test and you haven't already, you'll have patients that months later, when you do their progress exam, they'll still remember that one test. They might not remember anything else. They might not even remember what the x-rays showed, but they will remember that test. And they'll say, I want to try that balance test again. I want to see, now that I've been getting adjusted for a couple months, I want to test out that, I want to see how that test goes and see if I've got my balance back. And sure enough, if they've been well adjusted, right, pun intended, then when they redo the test, they'll be much more stable with their balance. So just a fun test. And these are, again, ways you can incorporate your CAs and your team so they feel more involved in patient care. It builds more of a connection with the office. It builds more of that career feeling about what they're doing to help with patient improvements. Okay, so let's go back to our outline and take a look at the next section here, which is to provide additional testing. As I mentioned, I have a CA who's licensed to take x-rays, so she takes our x-rays. If you don't, doctors, you may have an associate doctor that takes your x-rays. I'm a big fan of x-rays because they really show the subluxation. So this is where that additional testing would come in. And then we want to conclude the CA exam. And we do that in one of our materials, which is called the new patient completion. And that'll actually come up next week in our materials. But the new patient completion outline will show you what steps happen in this number 4. All right, so that's that part. Now let's finish up with this here. I'm going to read through this script with you. It's relatively short, but you'll want to follow along with this because this is how basically the recording will go by your CA when they're doing the exam. And again, you're going to be really happy with this. I see Dr. Robinson on the call. You're going to love this because it really builds a connection where your patients are going to feel this bond with you, and the thinking transitions into, I'm so glad I found this office. I'm going to be coming here for a long time. I really enjoy what they're teaching me about my health. They're helping me regain control of my health. Now that I'm healthy, I want to stay healthy. Doctor, what does it take to do that? I'm yours for life. And that transition is really fun to see because, as Dr. B.J. Palmer called it, he called it getting the big idea. And when you see a patient that gets as close to the big idea, I mean, I know in chiropractic school we get the big idea, but a patient can come pretty close, and it's pretty amazing when you see that spark in their eye go off, and they're in, and you know it, and you're like, okay, let's get you on the table. Let's deliver that specific chiropractic adjustment to release your innate potential and allow you to experience life at the fullest capacity with full health. And it's just an amazing transition. So anyways, let's go through this. So this is the CA, prepping for the exam. And they're about to do a range of motion test here. So the CA says, if you feel tightness, excuse me, or pain during the tests, let me know so I can document them correctly. And then there's a footnote 1, perform the CA exam beginning with the location of the patient's primary concern and begin dictation, right? The dictation would be, this is a chiropractic exam with Wendy Robinson on April 27th. Yeah, 27th, 23, right? Just something like that to start the test. So first, relax your head and neck, and I'll test the flexibility in your neck. And then you do that, and they say it hurts on the right side. So this is the recording part. Cervical right lateral flexion is restricted by 25% with pain indicating subluxations. Lie on your back. And then there's footnote 2. Seated exam for neck pain, sample tests, cervical range of motion, shoulder depression, etc. Could be foraminal compression, right? Okay, so I'll guide you through these tests. Let me know if you feel any stiffness or pain. Does this hurt? That hurts my hip on the left side. Patrick Faber's test is abnormal on the right, indicating abnormal hip function. Please stand up. Footnote number 3, supine exam. So see, I'm giving you examples for each one of these as you go through the tests. Sample test would be like straight leg raise, or Braggard's test, or Patrick Faber's test. Continuing on. Patrick Faber's test is abnormal on the right, indicating abnormal hip function. Please stand up. I'll guide you through this next series of tests. If you, actually, I guess I already read that. If you feel any stiffness or pain, let me know right away. Well, that hurts. Kemp's test is abnormal on the right, indicating a subluxation. This next test will test for a subluxation in your upper neck, affecting your balance. Please close your eyes and walk towards me, heel to toe. And that's the standing exam that I talked about with the heel to toe test. And you'll see that if you watch the video with the CA exam that's listed right down here, you'll see that test. Please sit up while I document these findings. So then the patient says, wow, I didn't realize all this was going on with my spine. Am I going to be okay? Now, obviously, we want to take great care of our patients. When you get that question, am I going to be okay? It doesn't mean that you over-dramatize their condition or that you're trying to scare them. That's not what that means. What that means is they just took a step towards taking their condition more seriously. Right? I mean, if I said to you right now, I just had an appointment yesterday where I went to the emergency room. As soon as I say emergency room, right away, you're thinking, whoa, this is serious. If you went to the ER, that's serious. But actually, when I went there, they just turned me around and said, no, you're fine. And I left. Okay, there wasn't really a serious condition, but just by my understanding of what it means in general to go to the emergency room, my taking that seriously just jumped up a notch. So I'm sharing that with you now because when a patient says, am I going to be okay? What they're really saying is, I'm so glad I came here and I trust your judgment to take care of me. That's a huge statement. I mean, and of course, I appreciate as a doctor being in the position, to provide primary care for anybody when they come in to see me. And my intention is not to scare them, but I do want them to take what I'm about to say seriously. And it's unfortunate where, like, we view a subluxation as being serious, but if you walk into CVS, for example, or a drugstore, their version of addressing low back pain or subluxations is just pop a couple pills and go back to work. Like, you're fine. You won't feel any symptoms, so you must be healthy. And that, to me, is a dangerous, dangerous paradigm to judge your health on. So we want to do things through the process of our examination and our transitioning a new patient into our office that help them to understand how to take better care of themselves. And part of that is incorporating taking the subluxation not more seriously, but taking it serious enough so that they properly address it through chiropractic care, right? So that's what we want, big picture wise. So that's why we take the time to go through these little steps like this. Okay, so let's continue on. Right here. Okay, so I didn't realize this was all going on. Am I going to be okay? Well, I hope we can help you, but the doctor will explain the details at your next appointment. Based on your exam, the doctor is concerned and wants you back as soon as possible to review the results with you and your spouse. And then there's a footnote there. Sorry, I didn't read number 5 footnote. That's the CA turns off the tape recorder and adds the results to the consultation page, which I'm going to show you. And the new patient reflects on what they experienced for a moment while it's quiet. So they're kind of reflecting while you're just documenting your findings. It just takes a minute, maybe 2, but they're thinking about what they just experienced while you're documenting those findings. And then number 6, escort the patient to reception for the new patient completion. So let me show you that on the website, because I had mentioned a couple of things. Let's see. So we're in new patient module here, and we're going to scroll all the way down. I want to scroll to this one first, because I said I was going to come back to this. This is the summary of charges, which is what's going to go along with the CA's exam. This is what's going to go to the front desk to complete the new patient appointment. So on this form, after my exam, I checked off what I want the front desk to do with finishing out this new patient appointment. So I documented my services. I did an exam. In this case, it was a PI or a work comp exam. I wanted these 2 x-rays to be taken. So these are the 2 x-ray series that I ordered. Down here, I want the front desk to provide them with icing instructions. I want them to provide the patient with a notice of appointment. I just used this yesterday. I want to share this with you. I had a new patient come in, and everything went great. When he was going to leave, I said, I would like you to come back with your wife to go over the findings. I have some exercises I'm going to give you to do at home. And he said, my wife works all day. I don't think she can make it. And I said, well, how about if I was to give her a doctor's note to be excused from work just for 1 hour so she could come and help you with these exercises? And immediately he said, oh, thank you so much. Absolutely. With a note, she can let them know. She'll be dismissed for 1 hour. She can come with me, and then she can just go back to work. So that's great. And that's what he did. Okay. Then providing pre-ROF appointments. So I checked off that I want this patient to come back as soon as possible for their adjustment. And then here I checked off, or I wrote down the name of the person who's going to come back with them so that they can assist with those exercises. And I also wrote down the charges. These are the charges that are due for this appointment. So that's all there for you. And that is going to be like a baton pass. It's continually going through with the new patient along their new patient sequence. Then we're going to jump ahead a week to the new patient completion. So we'll be covering this in detail next week, but I just wanted to show you this because in the new patient completion, where did it go? Sorry, I've got to jump back over. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's right at the top. There we go. So in the new patient completion, then when the patient goes up to the front, this is where the front desk takes the summary of charges and uses that to schedule the report of findings appointment with the spouse. Okay. So all these things are linked together and they go in sequence so that you can have a successful new patient appointment and follow the steps that are needed so that your new patient now has a better understanding of chiropractic. They know they're in the right place and they're excited to begin their care. That's the process that we're going through. Okay. So anyway, so those are the materials, and you can also see our video. If I go back to the homepage, we have 2 videos. One is an intro. So this is just an intro to why this is important. And the other one is an examination demonstration. And you'll see in that the full sequence that I just showed you today. All right, so that was a lot. We covered it. I want to just remind everyone on the website to please put in your results for the goals tracking system. We're moving right along through the year, and we're going to be towards the end of the year, we're going to be announcing our DC and CA of the year as winners of this prestigious award. And I'm excited. I'm going to share my success rates with you, but just know I don't share anybody's success rates with anybody except my own. And it's not to brag. It's just to hopefully inspire you to participate with this, because it makes a huge difference with how you reach your goals and have a successful practice, but also it makes a big difference in how you're working with your team to have a successful practice. So I'm going to jump down here and just show you, well, up here, we've got all of our users. So I've got myself and my 4 CAs. I actually have an associate doctor too. He's not on here, but also down at the bottom, it shows our success rates. And you can see how some are stronger than others, right? The 2 weaker links in the spokes in the wheel right now for us are our patient visits and our revenue. But as you'll see next month, because we have been really working hard on it, so you're going to see a big jump in both of these success rates come next month, and I'll share those with you at the time. But right now we're at 103% of our goal for new patients. We're at 87% of our goal for reported findings, which the threshold is 80%. So we're well above our threshold for reported findings. Patient visits is at 85%. I'm not so happy about that, but we're working towards making the changes. And it's really fun. And I see Dr. Robinson again on the call. So I'll share this with you because I know we're working together on a couple things. But our goal, for example, on a Wednesday is 150 patient visits. That's our goal. And yesterday we had 155. So our success rate for yesterday was well over 100%. And what will happen on the goals tracking system is it only shows a completed month. So right now it's showing 85% as an accumulative number for the year, but it has not yet incorporated our results for April. It won't actually tally those until May 1st. So on May 1st, I'm expecting to see this number jump up a bunch because we have been seeing our patient visit numbers really increase. Little side story, this winter, for those of us in California, was a little wet. In Santa Cruz in particular, it seemed like every other week I was hearing about somebody's house flooding or a road washing out or people getting washed away in the ocean or something. So at last, my office is sunny. The sun is out. It's a big glowing ball in the sky. We're all really excited about it. And what we've found is there's just been a huge number of patients who through all the, and my sympathy goes out to them because there was some real hardships that happened this winter because of the weather. But now that that's sort of behind us, a lot of patients are calling and saying, I haven't been there for a month. I haven't been there for 6 weeks. I need to come back in and get caught up on my adjustments. So we've had a huge influx of patients that we haven't seen for the past 4 months that are all coming in and ready to resume their care. So that's part of why I'm really excited to see that our numbers are jumping up. And of course, when patient visits jump up, then revenue jumps up as well, which that's at 90%. We want to get that above 100%, and we're on track to do that. Okay, so with that being said, or actually, I didn't share that part of my screen. I guess I should have. Did I forget to share my screen the whole time? I hope I didn't. There we go. So now you can see those are my numbers as I was going through that. New patients at 103%. Right on. Reported findings, 87%. That's great. Patient visits, 85%. We've got some room for growth. Care plan renewals at 95%. Very good. It should be at 90% or above. And then revenues at 90%. So obviously that needs to come up as well. Now, when I look at who in my office is responsible for these things, I can show you here because when it comes to the focuses, this is how I meet with my team and encourage them to either continue as planned if their success rates are doing well, or I encourage them to change some things so we can grow and have a better practice in that area. So we've divided down the practice into 5 focuses. There's 5 areas that you really want to keep an eye on to make sure your practice is running smoothly. And those 5 focuses are right here. So we have new patient focus, reported findings focus, patient visits focus, care plan renewals focus, and revenue. And those are the ones that I work with my team. Now, just as a side note, and maybe this is for some of our newer members, but as a side note, care plan renewals and reported findings, those focuses can be assigned to multiple team members. And the system allows you to do that. That's for reported findings and care plan renewals. Why? Because, for example, in my office, all of my team is trained to do reported findings and care plan renewals. So we all have input around those focuses. Well, let's take new patients. New patients, yes, we're all trained around new patients, but there's only one person who's going to be responsible and accountable for that success rate. So I've assigned new patients to one CA. And the same is true. I have one CA who's responsible for revenue and actually patient visits as well. So since I have those assigned to one person, it doesn't mean that there's not some cross-training involved and other people can help out with that. But what it does mean is I have a go-to. I have a person who, if that number drops, I can work closely with them to change it and bring it up. So that's how we structure that. With that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. We're going to go enjoy some sunshine. I think I'm going to go surfing, but I will look forward to talking to you next week. And then, as I said, our seminar upcoming next month will be a virtual seminar. So we won't be doing it live, but the one in July is live. So anyways, I'll look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great week. And thanks again for being part of DC Trainings.
If you would like to become a member of DC Trainings, be sure to head on over to dctrainings.com to get started today.